So welcome to a little evening yoga. So we're gonna do, I'm gonna try out the yin yang format. So the yin is the kind of slower and longer. We'll do that at the beginning. And then the yang format will be a little bit more of a flow, but not with a lot of sun salutations. So, you know, hopefully that will work. But if you have feedback or comments, you can let me know what you think. And then we'll go from there. So we're gonna start with a butterfly pose. I'm gonna do mine as a reclining butterfly. And I'm gonna use a pillow to elevate my back. And if you wanted to, you could kind of build up a nice slope so your head is quite high, or you can lie right down onto the floor so that you're level. And if it would be helpful to have something underneath your legs so that your butterfly pose isn't too sharp, then do that. I'm gonna use a blanket for that purpose. Okay. Now this will be like our opening pose, and it's our opportunity to groan, or more importantly, kind of get centered, let go of the day. One of the things I like about evening yoga is, for the most part, whatever tasks I had on my agenda for the day, most of them are usually done. Like sometimes there's few left in the ethers that I have to go complete later. But yoga at the beginning of the day is opposite of that. There's a whole day in front of me. I've got a bajillion things in my head that I want to, you know, plan for and stuff like that. So for you, it might be the opposite. Just notice where your head is. And if you find that you're thinking about stuff that you got to do later, or you're thinking about things that have already happened that you're still kind of chewing on or problem solving, those are the things we're going to try to let go of for the next, whatever, 45 minutes or hour or so that we're together tonight. We're going to try to let all those go. And, you know, like for me, the mental image is to kind of clip the little threads of all those thoughts, come to kind of a smooth present moment place. What I like about a little bit of yin up front is that it gives us a chance to stay a while. So we'll be in this pose for like another 3.5 minutes or so. So you can breathe, relax the mind, relax the body. If any pose feels too sharp, you add more props, or you lighten the pose up a little bit by adjusting the joints so that they're not in the same exact position. We're just looking for that opportunity to relax and to unwind, physically, mentally, and even emotionally, spiritually, whatever levels you need to relax. All of the above. find that your mind is just super duper busy, then the tool that we use to keep coming back is the breath. You can watch the quality of the breath coming and going. Like, is it the same in the right nostril as the left nostril? Is the pose that we're doing in the moment, which this one is the one we're doing now, but this could happen at any moment in the future as well. Like, does the pose impact how the breath flows in the lungs? Is there a different quality to the inhale versus the exhale? Like, there's so many ways you can pay attention to the breath. And also just kind of experience the sensation without really any inquiry as well. It's a great tool for keeping the mind steady and quiet. So we've got just a little bit longer here, just shy of a minute. Take one more big breath. And then you can gently sort of change the pose. So I'm going to straighten out my legs. Oh, I'm going to stretch my whole body and then kind of roll to one side and slip the pillow out from underneath my back. Now, if you don't have a pillow under your back, then you won't have to do that part. And then I'm going to choose to just lie on the floor. Now, some of you might still need some extra support under your knees or your low back or under your head. So whatever support you need, just keep that. But make sure you've got enough room that you can stretch your arms over your head if you choose to do so in a moment. So before I get to the that part, which is the banana, I'm just experiencing the kind of shift that's happened now that that pillow's come out from under my back. So there's this kind of sense that my back is widening out. There's a kind of gentle impression left behind. I can feel like almost like a little indentation in my back where the pillow was. So as the tissue changes and kind of releases, there's a really nice soft feeling that goes with that. There was a little opening in my chest muscles, so I'm just releasing a little bit of tension the muscle where the arm and the chest meet. Oh. All right, so whatever works for you. Maybe your low back needed some attention or your inner thighs needed some attention. And when you're ready, stretch yourself out from fingertips to toe tips, and then we're just gonna kind of curve ourselves into a crescent shape. The arms do not have to stay overhead, but they can. The legs can move into the crescent or stay more neutral. You can cross the outside leg over the inside leg and let that leg get kind of heavy, which for me pulls a little more on the outer part of my hip. You can bend a knee. Sometimes I like to bend the inside knee and kind of settle my ankle under the long leg knee. So I've got like a figure 4 going on with my legs. That's sometimes really comfortable for me. So you can make different little choices. And then once your choices are made, just let your body get kind of heavy, sink into the ground. We're going to let time and gravity do all the work here. Again, you can just kind of clip the threads of any forward future thinking or backward past thinking. And let yourself arrive in the present moment, breathing. Or just noticing your surroundings. Sometimes I have like the window open and I can hear birds outside, or sometimes furry creatures run through. entertain, you know, my attention for a few moments. So you might have a dog on your mat. It's hard to say how things are going right now. But you can just be one with whatever it is. That's part of the interesting thing to me of practicing at home. It's sort of incorporating whatever the home environment lays out for our practice. While I may not have chosen that intentionally prior to the pandemic coming along, it's definitely been an interesting opportunity to practice, you know, again in a more to renew my love of home practice. Since I'm doing it a lot more now. All right, so we're gonna stay for one more minute. So take a nice big breath. And then really gently just return to the center. Now again, you can move immediately, you can pause and just feel how the body might feel slightly off center, or like one side of my body feels longer, the other side feels a little bit shorter. One side feels higher, one side feels a little closer to the ground. None of that is real. If I put my hands on my hips, or probably if I measured my legs, they'd be pretty close to the same as normal, but the sensation of that tissue having been held for a long time creates that impression in my nervous system, which I rather enjoy. But I also like a little bit of movement after. So I'm doing these little windshield wiper moves with my legs. You can pull your knees into your chest if that feels like a better idea. Or maybe for you, kind of jiggling the shoulder or the arm bones or something like that would be your jam. When you're ready, and I kind of wait until I feel like slightly more neutral in my spine. I don't feel like my spine is still bending in the same direction. When that happens, then I know I'm ready to do the other side. There's always a little bit of that impression and kind of inclination to side bend the original direction left for a little bit. Usually for me about 30 to 45 seconds is how long that lasts. Okay, so once you're ready, you bend the other way, and we'll stay here for about the same length of time. A few minutes. Again, you can change the way, like you can turn your head or not. You can adjust how the arms are positioned. On this side, I like maybe more of a kind of saguaro cactus shape with my arms than straight overhead. Just feels a little nicer to have the elbow bent on the right side. So it's okay to do it slightly different. You can also do it exactly the same and see what happens. I'll stay for about another minute or so. So we're going to take a nice deep breath and then just meander back to the center. See how things went. Does it feel a little more even here in the middle now? So I like to have a moment of giving myself a little windshield wiper legs, a little knees into my chest, back massage. I'm going to do all that. And then we're going to meet up in a seated position. Oh. For the seated poses, I'm going to wind up using a blanket and a yoga block as props for myself. If you're not sure what you might need for some juicy hip things, just grab a few things and have it nearby so you can easily reach it. Okay, so we're going to start with what's called a half butterfly. So we've got one straight leg and one bent leg, and we're sitting up. And I take a rolled up blanket and sort of slide it under the knee area so that the straight leg, it has a little bit of a soft surface under the back of my knee. And then the bent leg, I can pull the blanket either up by my hip bone or down by my ankle and support that leg if it doesn't want to touch the ground all the way. So that's my preference. And then we're going to fold forward over the leg that's out straight. So you can fold directly forward, belly down, or you can turn to the side and fold sideways if you want to. We just did the banana pose though, so we probably covered that. So what I'm after is a little bit of hamstring stretch. There's a little bit of an unevenness, like one side of my back gets a slightly different stretch than the other, but not in an uncomfortable way. And there's just a little bit of the kind of inner thigh stretch on the bent knee, but not too much, not as much as the original butterfly. This is largely a song about my hamstrings and my lower back. So notice what's true for you. We're going to try to relax the body. We'll stay for a few minutes. I'm relaxing as much as I can. So I'm letting my leg relax, and every now and then I'll catch myself doing one of my habits of like tightening up my leg muscles. I'm just trying to see if I can let that go. I have a block that I'm using under my elbow just so I give myself this kind of sense of being a little bit more casual, not holding on to my foot. So it keeps me sort of in this soft mindset. Stay for just shy of 1 more minute. I like best about this pose is that the breath has to find new homes in my low back to expand. So I'm just going to turn my attention to that for the last few breaths here. So we're going to take a nice big inhale and let that kind of bring us out of the pose. So as my rib cage kind of expands, I'm just coming up. So that rib cage expanding sort of gives me a structure within which to kind of unwind my spine. And it feels better to me to do it that way when I've been hanging out in a pose for a while. If I've only done the pose for 5 or 6 breaths, it doesn't really matter. But when I've been kind of in a really relaxed position, I find that inhale kind of helps create that structure to come back out of it. Now, that's my experience. You're having your experience, but notice, like, does it feel better for you to come out of the pose on an exhale or an inhale? And then you can kind of replicate that or choose the right one on the other side. Now, we're gonna do some variation of either a pigeon / swan, or you can I'm gonna do a shoelace / square pose, double pigeon fire logs pose. And depending on how your hips feel about life and your knees feel about life, you might change this pose around. So you can do a pigeon pose / swan pose with your belly down towards the floor, or you can flip your pose upside down and have one leg straight and just kind of hug the other leg in towards your chest. You can do both legs kind of one over top of the other and hug both legs into your chest. And then the seated version of that is to take one leg and put it up on top of the other. You can do just a cross-legged position with the legs fairly close together, as close as you can get them into the midline. So for me, the best option is to do more of a square shape where my shin bones kind of make the front part of the square and my hips the back part of the square, and both my thigh bones are parallel. Some people will be in a better position if their knees cross over each other and they have a triangle here where the hips are the wide part and the knees are the pointy part of the triangle. So everybody's bones are shaped a little differently. You might have had surgeries that have changed the way your bones respond, your joints respond in your body. So you're gonna modify whatever you need to. We're just trying to get to our outer hip. So if we can get to the outer hip in one of the various iterations, that's what we're looking for. And we're gonna stay for like another 2.5 minutes or so. But if along the way you realize, like, if you can get 1.5 minutes in, that's gonna at least start giving you the benefit. So I'll give you a little we have 1 more minute mark, and if you feel like it's time to come out, you can certainly do that then. Okay, so we're gonna stay for 1 more minute. So this is that point where you're kind of listening to your own body, It feels like you can stay another minute and it feels good. For me, this is the nice minute. Everything really starts to relax. But if it's opposite for you, it would be appropriate to come out. So we're gonna take a nice big breath. And again, I'm coming up with that big inhale, leaning back and then undoing the legs. And before I even think about going to the other side, I'm gonna pause for a moment and let everything kind of settle. I'm doing really gentle movement right now, just kind of a little wobble in my femur bone, hip socket area, which creates a little shimmy or a little shake down the line of my legs. But that's as far as I'm going right now. Eventually I might make this movement bigger, but right now that's what's feeling good. Some little ankle circles. So essentially what we're gonna do is just the two poses that we just did, but on the opposite side. So my left leg was straight last time, now my right leg is gonna be the straight leg. If you're not quite ready to make this move, don't make the move yet, wait a little longer. It'll be fine. Okay. So I'm gonna get myself in position and then I remind myself, oh yeah, relax everything. Make it as casual as we can. And a little half butterfly here. Creeping up on our last minute here. Again, it might be the appropriate time to pay attention to the breath. You might need to make some little adjustments, but if you can mostly kind of hang out relatively still and be comfortable, then this is the last minute. And if it's feeling really grouchy and uncomfortable, come out. Use that minute for movement. All right, yogis, we're gonna take a nice big breath. And again, we'll just hold on to that and come all the way up. And then again, you'll choose like whatever you did last time, whether you did a reclining version of this pigeon, swan, square, shoelace, whatever you want to call it. There's so many names. They're all just like names for slight variations on a theme. But in any case, we'll kind of find our way into there. And if you need a minute to shake your legs out first, do that first and then come on into the pose. And then we'll hang out with this guy for a bit. Kind of monitor how things are going, how your hip feels about life. Make good choices for yourself. So we're at that point where we've got another minute or so ahead of us. So this might be the point where you think, yeah, this is good. I'm feeling good about hanging out, or I'm feeling good about bailing. Just make one choice that's right for you. Do 2 more breaths. So again, once I'm all the way up, I'm going to lean back so there's very little pressure on my knees, and then I'm going to unwind my legs. Now, if you did that last pose as a reclining pose, you can, we're going to wind up on our belly essentially for some cobra. So you can find your way there when you're done moving around. So if you want a little child's pose first, you can certainly do that. So, my first order of business here, so I'm not totally ready to do a back bend. That was some forward bending thing, ish shapes. But I do want to roll my shoulders. So I've positioned myself onto my belly. I've got a palm underneath each shoulder of my hand, underneath each shoulder with my palm on the floor and my fingers spread out nice and wide. And then I'm just rolling my shoulders in a circle, going one direction a few times, and then go in the opposite direction. Circling the shoulders around against the resistance of the floor. I find it easier to do one direction than the other. And then anchoring my legs, I'm just going to lift with my back and just a little baby cobra. Okay, come on back down. Press the palms into the ground, lift, and then draw your chest wider by pulling against the floor with your hands. Coming back down, and then inhale and lift. And then come on back down. And if your wrists are okay with it, slide your hands back like a half an inch or an inch. And roll your shoulders again. 3 or 4 or 5 in one direction, and then the same number or so in the other. And then anchor the legs and lift into cobra. And maybe now the cobra starts to lift a little higher. Draw your shoulders back, lift. Draw the shoulders back, lift, kind of pull against the floor with your hands. Come on back down. And then if you want, you can do some little windshield wiper moves with your legs. You can go back to all fours. You can come to a child's pose. Whatever will sort of give you a nice in-between space. Downward dog would also work. So if that's your jam, you can do some downward dog. Now, one way or another, we're going to work our way into a standing forward bend and then a standing up pose. So I'm going to take myself to a downward dog because I was doing child's pose. And then I'm going to walk my hands back to my feet. So now I'm in a forward bend. I made mine a little on the wide side, and I'm kind of flowing, weaving, leaning back and forth to the right, to the left, letting my knee bend a little bit as I go to each side. I'm not sure what the right verb is. And then we're going to come all the way up to standing, or at least I am. I'll invite you to do the same if you're up for it. And give yourself a nice big stretch. Oh. Oh. All right. Now, we're going to find ourselves at the top of a mat. So, whatever you deem the top of your mat, you're going to put yourself there. And then we'll find a way into a mountain pose. Now, the front part of the mat is going to always remain the front of the mat. And that edge of the mat that's currently behind you is always going to remain the back of the mat. So if I say turn your feet towards the top of the mat, they're always going to come in the direction that you're now pointing. If I say turn your feet towards the back of your mat, they're always going to point the opposite direction. Hopefully that makes sense. We've established some landmarks. And then right and left are going to be right and left. So if you're like me, that can be interchangeable, but you know, pick one and make that your right side and one and make that your left side. So you're going to take a nice big breath, reach your arms overhead, grab your right wrist, stretch yourself over to the left. Come back to the center, take a chair pose. It can be just a baby chair pose, or you can really squat down. So we're gonna take all the weight into the right leg, pick the left leg up and step back, and we'll take a warrior one shape so that there's a solid base. We don't have to overturn the ribs. You can kind of let the ribs go with your hips, but we're more or less pointing towards the front of the mat. We'll take the arms up, and then pull the elbows back behind you, kind of squish the shoulder blades together and then push forward. So arms up, elbows back, push forward. Arms up, elbows back, push forward. Now we're gonna straighten out the front leg and fold towards it. And I'm gonna kind of go in and out. I'm gonna use a yoga block. So I'm gonna bend my knee and kind of take the pressure out of that hamstring, and then I'm gonna straighten the leg. Press both feet into the floor. Bend the knee, and then straighten the leg. Push both feet into the floor, and then I'm just gonna do that one more time. And then I'm gonna hold that straight leg for 2 more breaths. Bending the right knee and reaching my left hand out in front so that it's like a foot or so in front of my foot, but off to the left. And I'm using a block under my hand. I'm gonna pick my left foot up off the ground. So now I'm gonna reach my right arm up front and my left foot back and do a standing spinal balance here. Stretch between those 2 points. Nice big breath. And then we're gonna bring that left foot and put it down on the ground. So now we've got both feet pointing towards the top of the mat. Come up halfway, all the way to standing. Give yourself a big stretch. And then we'll come back to mountain pose and just pause for a moment and see if there's any differences in the left or right side. Nice big breath, arms reach up. Grab your left wrist, give yourself a little stretch over to the right. Coming back to center, a chair pose of your own making. Like a little tiny chair like you're sitting on a bar stool or way down deep. Putting the weight into the left leg. We're gonna step the right foot back like a warrior 1. Arms up, then elbows back. Then push the hands forward, arms up, elbows back. Push the hands forward, 1 more, arms up, elbows back. Push the hands forward, and then we're gonna fold forward. I adjust my feet just a little bit so that my toes are more pointing towards the front of the mat. And then I'm gonna bend my front knee and straighten it towards the hamstring stretch. Bend it a bit, which gives me a little more of a calf stretch on my back foot, back leg, and then straighten it a bit. And then bend my front leg, and straighten it a bit, and then I'm gonna hold steady right there for 2 breaths. Bending the front knee, reaching that right hand out. So this is going to be that standing spinal balance. So my left foot, right hand are on the floor. Right leg comes up, left arm stretches out, reaching between those 2 points. Maybe your voice would change if you were talking too. Taking 1 more breath. Bringing your right foot down. Finding yourself halfway up, and then all the way to standing. Give yourself a big stretch. And then we bring ourselves to a mountain pose. See where we land. I feel a little more even. Take a nice big breath. Reach your arms overhead. Grab your right wrist, little stretch to the left. Coming back to the center, find a chair pose. Picking up your left foot, we're gonna step ourselves back, this time warrior 2. When you got your legs where you like them, come on back to a reverse warrior. And then a side angle. Now you can go as slow or as fast as you want. I like to inhale the pose, exhale, move, inhale in the pose, and then exhale and move. So I'm taking an inhale on either end, even if I'm wobbly. Then I'm gonna stay with my side angle for a couple of big breaths. If you want to, you can make this a triangle instead. And we're gonna come up, turn all the toes towards the side of the mat that's between the front and the back, right? Whichever direction you're facing in. And this is gonna turn into a wide angle forward bend. Now, you can adjust your toes out or in to make sure your knees and hips are happy. You can hang upside down like a rag doll. You can make it a more active pose. You can bend your knees and go a little side to side, or keep your legs straight and go a little side to side. Just make appropriate choices for you. Now we're gonna turn to the back of the mat. So I'm gonna turn my left foot all the way around to the back edge. And my right foot is gonna make that warrior two side angle adjustment. I'm gonna come into my side angle pose with my, now on my left leg, right? And stretch out nice and long. So now I'm turned the other direction towards the back of the mat. One more big breath here. And then I'm gonna do the little flow. I'm gonna go back to reverse warrior, over to side angle, back to reverse. Sorry about that, plant. To side angle. And try not to smack my plants while I'm here. Back to side angle. That was not a euphemism. It was just literally hit a plant. So then we come to that warrior two, and we're gonna try to get this right leg to step all the way to the back of the mat into a chair pose. So it's pretty wide. So I'm gonna wiggle myself in until I feel like I can make one step into that chair, in and amongst my plant vines. And then I'm gonna stand up nice and tall, grab my left wrist, give myself a little stretch over to the right. I'm gonna come back to the middle and find mountain pose. Now going from front to back, it's a little weird, but it's also kind of fun. So the next step is to sit down on the mat and do a boat pose. Some people will be able to just squat right down and sit. I am not one of those people. So I am gonna put my hands on the floor and then sit down and then come to my boat. You can hold on to your boat pose. You can let go of your boat pose. You can get fancier with your boat pose. Just pick one. One cheek boat. Other cheek. Roly-poly boat. Let's try the other cheek. Not tonight. That's what I like about the boat pose. It's a little bit playful. All right, yogis. So we have a little bit of stuff to do to kind of get ourselves settled in. So we're gonna roll down onto our back, and we'll do a little bit of work for the hip flexors, and then we'll do some Shavasana. So I'm going to take out my hair clip and then use my boat pose to come on down here. Now that I'm here laying on my back, I've got a little windshield wiper thing going on, but what I want ultimately is my legs to be in this constructive rest position. So the feet are resting on the floor, almost like I'm gonna do a bridge pose, but much more relaxed. So I want the legs to completely relax. I'm gonna lift the toes of my right foot, and then I'm keeping the toes pointing straight up toward the ceiling. I'm just gonna glide my right leg out as far as I can and reach into it, spread the toes apart, and then glide it back. After I've rested for a moment, I'm gonna glide it back out, same thing. Stretch, and glide it back. Toes up, glide out, stretch, and glide that leg back. I'm going to do that one more time. Toes up, glide out, glide back. Now I'm going to do that leg, that right leg that I was just stretching. I'm just going to pop that up on top of my left leg. And then, so I've got kind of almost an eagle situation happening. It's not quite an eagle pose, but it's as close as I ever get. And then I'm gonna pick my legs up and take them over to the left. So I am now in a twist with my right leg and right hip up. And I've twisted to the left. So I feel the sensation on my right side, but the limbs are over on my left side. Now you can turn your head either direction. Now I put a pillow underneath my legs for them to kind of rest on, and that's feeling pretty nice. So I'm gonna relax now as much as I can. Initially, I was being a little more active. Now I'm going to get really passive in the twist. We'll take about 5 more breaths. You can do it either way. Be really actively kind of lengthening in your twist, or you can just let go. Good practice for life in general lately. Take one more breath, and then essentially just return to the center. I'm going to put both my feet back on the ground. I'm going to do the little windshield wiper moves, and I'm doing a wide position in my feet for this one because I just want it to be a little different than the last time where my feet were closer together. But you can, do your thing. Then we come back to that constructive rest. And I just want to feel my right hip, the right lower back. I just want to tune into that area and see if I sense any sense of softness, a little more of a relaxation there. For me, I do, but notice for you. There's no wrong answers in yoga. It just is the answer. And so I'm going to take my left toes off the ground and just as best I can glide my leg out, stretch through that leg, glide it back, and then rest. Toes up, glide it out, glide it back. This is one of my favorite things. I love these little hip flexor stretches. They just feel so good. Whatever reason, no matter what yoga poses I've done or haven't done during the course of a day, they feel good no matter what. Sometimes I do them at night in bed before I cover up. All right, so now I'm going to take that left leg, put it up on top of the right one, and then I'm taking my legs over. So I've got kind of an eagle-y, twisty leg for my twist, but you don't have to do it that way. You can do it your way. And then we're just going to rest for a few breaths. Stay for 2 more breaths. Now, the next thing we're doing is just Shavasana. So I'm gonna essentially unwind my legs, and just as I come back to the center, I'm just dragging a pillow with me to put underneath my legs. And then, find a nice comfortable way to land. So if it's chilly where you are, you can certainly cover with a blanket. It's nice and toasty in my space, so I'm leaving myself uncovered. But a blanket makes a nice pillow, so you can certainly do that as well. And then let yourself try to just let every muscle let go. Let your eyes get a little softer and a little kinder. So you regard yourself with a little more kindness. The moment that we're in with some kindness. The muscles in your mouth and jaw relax. And just notice your breath for a few moments. Notice any differences between the breath now and the way you remember it from the beginning, if there are any. Take a nice big breath all the way to your toes. Let it go with a big ah. As you're ready, you could wiggle and stretch and move around. So we're gonna find our way to a seated position. So thank you for joining me for some Wednesday night yoga. Let's take a nice big breath together. A big sigh. Namaste, lovelies.